Hello, my friends. It's Ranger Russ from the Meigs Nature Center. Special program today. I am outside at the Nature Center, but we're going to have a guest coming on with us. And as soon as we get a few people, I'll see if I can invite them in. A sparrow just landed right behind you guys. Well, behind the phone. And I want to take notice. We have monarch butterflies. There are five monarch butterflies right there on those, looks like a type of an aster over there. So we've already got some butterflies visiting us. And our guest today, and as soon as I see them, I will invite them on, is Senator Christine Cohen, state senator from Connecticut. And we are a little bit early, so we'll see. As soon as I see them come on, I can invite them. I see Judith. Hello, Judith. So if anyone has any questions for the senator, we'll have opportunity to ask your questions as well as mine. And I really want to find out from her what things are coming up. So we're waiting to see. We've got people signing in all the time here. So far, I'm not seeing her, but we're waiting. Let's see. There we go. Can add. Hold on one second. We are adding. Let's see if. It says it's connecting. Hey! It worked. All right, so we have Senator Christine Cohen, state representative of this area. You are chair of the environmental committee, correct? Still the chair? Uh-oh. We can't hear you. Actually, I'm hearing feedback. We still don't hear you. All right, we're trying to connect right now. I feel like I hear myself. Feedback. You don't have a microphone plugged in. All right, we're trying to connect with the senator. I feel like I'm only hearing myself. All right, I think she's going to try and log back on. So as soon as I see her again, we will we'll connect back with her. Hold on a second here. Let's try it again. Let's see if that worked this time. Adding. We're adding you right now. It still says adding. This is be fun when we get connected here. That's better.
Can you hear me? You can hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Oh, good. Good thing
All
my
right.
children have these AirPods. They work marvelously sometimes. Yeah, good.
That's great.
Yeah, so I am the chair of the Environment Committee, and I represent several districts along the shoreline, including Madison, where our lovely Hammonasset State Park is. and where you are, Ranger Rush. So thanks for having me today.
Oh, really happy to be able to do this. So the programs that I've been doing since March, like 3 days after they announced that the Nature Center would not open, we started these Facebook Live programs. And I've been able to do a lot of environmental education. And I thought it was kind of a great fit that you're on, or the chair of the environmental committee uh, in Hartford.
Yeah.
So maybe we can talk about, well, the first thing I would like to talk about is a bill that's already passed
Okay.
and that I was really excited to see go through. And that was last year when the passport to parks, was it last year or now 2 years ago?
No, 2 years ago. Yeah, my
Wow.
predecessor. Yeah, yeah.
Time is flying.
Right.
So that, to me, and you can tell me what it meant to you, but to me that meant that the people of Connecticut really not only supported the parks but supported an environmental issue. The turnout for it and the numbers were just far more than I think anyone really expected, and it's been fantastic to see here because that's what pays for my seasonal staff and allows us to do a lot. But what did you think it meant that bill passed and the way that it passed?
Yeah, well, I mean, I have to say, I have to give a shout out to my predecessor on this, Ted Kennedy Jr., who really fought very hard along with the rest of the Environment Committee at the time to see this bill come to fruition. It's a great program where many folks probably know, but you pay a small fee with your car registration, and that goes into a pool of money called that we refer to as Passport to Parks. It gives everybody free entry to the parks. So it serves two wonderful purposes. Number one, it makes parks more broadly available to everyone across the state of Connecticut, which is really exciting because no longer are you paying entry, at each park, and you can just go to as many parks as you want across the state of Connecticut, really explore, all for that small $5 registration fee that you pay with your car. It also enables us to have, as you said, Ranger Russ, we can pay for the park's employees. We can pay for maintenance and beautification of the parks. We can pay for, trails and reforestation. So there's so many great environmental uses for this fund that is really, it's working out really well. We're seeing, the numbers are actually a little bit higher than anticipated in the fund. So we're actually able to do even more, go deeper and provide more environmental uses within our park system. It's a great program. It's a great program. Can't say enough about it. And we need to make sure that we're protecting those funds so we have this going forward.
Yeah, I know that has been talked about a little bit, was earmarking the money so that it makes sure it goes to parks.
Yeah.
And I love what you said about opening up the parks to a wider group of people.
Yeah.
I really feel like I get to see people on a regular basis, and I see a lot more people that just come in for an hour or two, where it used to be if you were coming to a park and you were paying to come in, you were spending all day.
Right.
And what we're seeing is people are passing by and they're just, oh, I've never been to Hammonasset, let's just stop in.
Yeah.
And then they want to come back because they were only planning on spending a few minutes, and they realize there's a lot more to be seen in a park than just, a half hour or an hour here or there.
Yeah,
So
yeah, it's a
it's a great
tremendous
opportunity.
value. It's actually $10 over the course of a 2-year registration, but for that
Right.
small amount of money, I mean, you get so much benefit. Like you said, lots of parks that are in their area and not explore the rest of Connecticut. And we have so many, Gillette Castle, Dinosaur State Park. I mean, it's just and some of the lesser known, parks as well. So, maybe folks in our area had only been to Hammonasset and Chatfield Hollow and, hadn't explored some of the farther reaching parks, across the state. And now it's easy to do, as you said.
Yeah, this is a perfect time to do a plug for my shows. I've been doing these shows Tuesday through Friday at 11, and I have started, well, I've been doing it for a little while now, but going to other parks, not just staying here at Hammonasset. So about once a week, I get out to another park. Yesterday, I visited Wadsworth Falls,
Oh yeah, it's beautiful.
which I have been to the swimming area of Wadsworth Falls. This was my first time at the big falls. And it was, well, I find every park I go to, I'm like, all right, now I have to go back and see it at a different time of year or bring a kayak or
Yeah.
there's just so many things to do in the state parks. It's a lot of fun to do these programs because I get to explore these new places
Yeah,
that I've never
yeah.
been to before. So I
Yeah,
feel
it's
pretty lucky.
amazing what Connecticut has to offer. We're really fortunate here, and each park has its own unique qualities, and we're just so fortunate. We really are. Yeah.
So I want to let everybody know that if you are if you have any questions, you can put them up and I'll relay them, or I don't know if you can see the questions, but we'll try and answer people's questions as we go. Um, One of the questions that came up when we talked about having you on from our friends group here, the Friends of Hammonasset, there are concerns about balloons in parks and kite string and things like that. And I know that years ago there was some talk of a bill to either limit or eliminate, I think it was balloons that Audubon was talking about. Is there anything like that that you know of in the works right now?
Yeah, great question. So in 2019, we did have a bill that went through committee, and the bill would have prevented the voluntary release of helium balloons. Right now, this is crazy even saying this, but you're allowed to release up to 10 balloons. So
Right.
you say that and you think, how could that even be? How can we even allow one balloon to be released? So unfortunately, that bill has not gotten across the finish line, but we it reintroduced it this year in 2020, and of course, we know that the session was abruptly cut short due to COVID-19. Should I be reelected, I do intend to introduce that bill again. It has a tremendous amount of popularity. I was just on a cleanup last weekend with Save the Sound, actually in Brantford in the Farm River, and that's you see them just floating in the river. I know last year I posted a video that came out of Hammonasset of an osprey, clearly had a string from a helium balloon and the balloon itself tied to its talon, and you could see how the osprey was having trouble flying with this balloon tied to its talon, and how that can really interfere with their livelihood if that gets stuck in a beak or gets stuck on a wing. Diving, these osprey are diving into the water for food, unable to do that
Right.
with this encumbrance on their talons. So it's so important that we recognize what an impact this material has on our wildlife and on our environment. Anybody can drive down the street or be out in their kayak and see these balloons floating in trees or strewn in the rivers and our waterways, and so we have to do what we can to eliminate that. So this would eliminate the voluntary release of any number of helium balloons into the atmosphere. And of course, an accident happens every now and then, so those folks wouldn't be held liable. But we want to prevent as much as we can having these balloons floating around.
Right. I want to say, I believe the video that you posted, the balloon was recovered and the osprey did fly successfully away from the balloon.
Yeah.
So we had a couple of those actually. There was another incident where there was a balloon stuck in the nest. And fortunately, I have a great group of volunteers, and a couple of them went out and were able to recover the balloon out of the nest. So
Good,
that
good.
was earlier this year. So it happens far more often than I would like to see. And I think a bill like that would be fantastic. Is there something that the public can do when this bill is up to show support or to help get it through?
Absolutely. So if you go to cga.ct.gov, you'll see a list of all of the committees on that website. That's the main Connecticut General Assembly website. And from there, you can see the book of records or bills that we have any given year coming out. You can see testimony, you can see committee members, and why that's important is you can email committee members about anything that that we have going on. You can email committee members about ideas for legislation that you have. If you see a particular bill that is of interest to you, either you're a proponent of the bill or an opponent of the bill, you can go ahead and email committee members. You can submit testimony at ENV testimony. Now I'm giving you the wrong email address, but anyway, you can find that. I think it's ENV testimony. I'm just trying to think of the end of it, but regardless, if you go to that website, you'll be able to find exactly how to submit testimony on there and have it on the record. You can come to the Capitol. Should this pandemic, who knows what next year will bring for session, but should this pandemic calm down and we get back to some degree of normalcy, you can come and testify at hearings when we have a public hearing on a bill. And all of these things are really important to do if you want to see a bill's passage, or if you want to see a bill stopped, for that matter. So it's really important to lend your voice to these bill proposals so that legislators can truly be your voice and understand what it is that the public wants.
And on that testimony, is that a written testimony or can you record something?
So you can do written testimony by email, which I wish I had the proper extension on that to provide to you, but it's right there on the website. We can put it up next to the video. Great, perfect. And then you can also, if you do public testimony, you would go to the public hearing on the day that that particular bill is on the agenda, and you would provide your testimony in person. So you can do either, and both are very effective. You can do both. Like I said, you can also email committee members, which is separate from testimony. Just letting committee members know how you feel about anything. And also your own legislators. If your legislator who represents you is not on the particular committee of cognizance, in this case environment, you should let them know, because eventually a bill will move out of committee and the legislature on the whole will need to vote on it and have an understanding of what's in there.
I am a big proponent of people letting their voices be heard, whether they're for or against. I just think that it's great to hear people's opinions and where they stand on a subject. So
absolutely,
I love that.
Yeah.
So we had a comment go by about global warming. Are there any bills or anything that can be done in that realm right now? And I realize that with COVID, everything seems to be on hold right now. But looking forward, is there something along those lines that we can do?
Yeah, absolutely. So we need to, certainly we need to take a comprehensive to climate change. And that's what the Environment Committee has really set out to do. We also have the Energy Committee, which is separate from the Environment Committee, but we work very closely together. And over the past couple of years, there's been a real initiative in terms of climate change and global warming to do what we can to mitigate the impacts. I will say I started a coastal caucus of the legislature when I recognized we had a lot of bills coming down the pike, and the need to get other legislators up to speed on what was going on and what it looked like in their area, and how perhaps the waterways of the state are being impacted by sea level rise, for instance. Another thing that we've done and really focused on the Environment Committee is waste mitigation. And energy, trash to energy plants. What we really want to see more of is organics separation and energy through organics recycling. So that's something that we've been really focused on: anaerobic digestion, moving away from our typical trash collection, throw it all into one pile and hope it doesn't end up in a landfill, which unfortunately a lot of our trash still does, even though we don't have active landfills in Connecticut. We have old, aging trash facilities, and so if something breaks down or if we have an excess amount of trash, we will export trash out of the state of Connecticut. So we need to put an end to these practices in an effort to mitigate climate change. Additionally, there's been a real initiative to move up our carbon emissions goals. So the governor created the council, GC3, Governor's Council on Climate Change. They have been meeting regularly with, deep at the helm, the Department of Energy and Environmental Protection. There are many subgroups comprised of terrific environmental advocates that are working on things from transportation initiatives, waste mitigation efforts, clean water, anything that you can think of, reforestation, which is so important. In Connecticut, we're very lucky that we have a high carbon sink because of our tree cover. We need to make sure that continues. We need to, be planting trees, taking care of open space, making sure that we're acquiring more open space where possible and creating new forests as much as possible, because we know that actually plays a very, very large role. And transportation, as I mentioned already, another huge, many of us have heard about, Gary Newsom's announcement yesterday out of California to ban combustible, gas engines in the purchase of new cars by 2035. So they would go all electric vehicles. We need bold action like that across the country, across the world. And I'd love to see Connecticut, running similar programs. We are making steps. I said this yesterday on social media. We need to be taking leaps because it's, we're really faced with an existential crisis here, and we need to be doing whatever we can to mitigate the impacts that we're seeing for future generations.
Yeah. So many things you said there that I have a question or comment about.
Yeah, sorry.
Did you see the solar panel back there?
Yes, yay! Yeah, that's excellent.
So I did a recycling program earlier, and it was just trying to show people. I know that each municipality has its own way of recycling, but one thing that I would really like to see, and I don't know if there's any way to do this, is to make recycling easier to understand. And I was finding that when you're looking at the plastic numbers, sometimes it's just hard to find that. They make it so tiny.
Yeah.
I just wish it was like part of the label was how to recycle, like a big part of the label was how something should be recycled.
Yeah. Well, I mean, part of the problem, I agree with you. And I mean, part of the problem is that different states have different rules. And because different states have different rules on recycling practices, manufacturers would need to produce different products, based on those states' rules. And that's, very, very cumbersome and costly for the manufacturing industry. We've talked a lot about extended producer responsibility, right? Making sure that manufacturers aren't using large quantities of packaging, plastics, non-recyclable items We've talked a lot about polystyrene, styrofoam, which is not currently recycled in the state of Connecticut. There is the potential to recycle styrofoam, though we know that unless it's there's a conscientious effort to do so, it just doesn't get done. So we have this styrofoam. Like I said, I did a cleanup last weekend. You should see the amount of styrofoam. I'm sure you see it all the time. And that's stuff that stays around forevermore. So we really need to make it a concerted effort to get rid of the materials that pollute our environment and that do not have active recycling involved with them. So getting rid of some of these materials, these polystyrene materials in particular, getting manufacturers to use less packaging, less waste, less plastic, single-use plastics. These are bad things. We were successful last year in developing a plastic bag ban, another thing that you probably see flying around in the trees and floating in the water. I think, though that ban has not taken effect yet, it won't take effect until mid next year. We have seen a dramatic reduction in the number of plastic bags. So just making these small steps, or seemingly small steps at the time, can have a dramatic impact on our environment. And so I'd like to see us doing more of that. I will say too, I mean, you get me talking about some of my favorite topics and I won't shut up, but the recycling thing, we made a mistake actually from an environmental standpoint of making it a little too easy for consumers to recycle by going to single
Stream.
Yes, thank you. Instead of multi-stream recycling. And multi-stream recycling is really what we need to move back towards, but with, as to your point, with education, because a lot of that single stream recycling just ends up in our waste system, and it's not usable material for a lot of manufacturers. So if we can go back to a multi-stream and have clean recycled product as an end result of that, then we truly have a recycling system that works.
Yeah, I think it's really important for people to realize that a really efficient recycling system can actually make money and not become a hole where money is just disappearing all the time.
Right.
Several comments about education, which is my favorite topic. People are talking about education as far as recycling, as far as climate change. I have a composting program that will be coming up soon, which is another one that I am a really big person for composting. I think it's a great way to handle lots of household waste. But as far as education, when you're creating these bills, when you're looking at these bills, is money put into these for educating, or is it usually just, okay, we'll just pass the bill and then hope that people have other ways of learning about it?
Yeah, I mean, to be honest with you, no, there's not typically a separate pool of money unless in the bill we, make a concerted effort to call out education specifically. Generally speaking, a lot of this falls under DEEP's authority, so the Department of Energy and Environmental Protection, and they do have places on their website to get more information on composting, on waste, on recycling. But the consumer needs to go and look for it. And that can be frustrating because all of us, would love to see more of a marketing campaign to make sure that folks really know the proper way to go about to go about composting or recycling in particular. Composting can be a little bit more forgiving. You can make a couple errors, especially if you have your own home individual compost. But, the recycling system that we have in place really does require education about cleaning out, the materials or the food waste and food scraps from those plastics and aluminum cans and putting them in the right, the bin when they belong in the bin and not putting them in there when they don't, you either get too much in there or not enough in there, you know? So,
Right.
so I do think that there needs to be more widespread education. Funding always comes into play. That's, a difficult conundrum that we're up against, is figuring out how, to run an appropriate marketing campaign with the dollars that are limited for the state.
We have a comment that all these small steps lead to a huge effect, and that's something.
So true.
One of the things that I always talk about is asking everybody to pick up one piece of litter a day. And we have enough people across Connecticut that if we all picked up one piece of litter a day, before long, it would be hard to find the trash on the sides of the road.
That's right. Yeah.
Which I would love to see. I go out every day and it's so easy to find that piece of trash.
Yeah.
I would love it to be a challenge where I had to search and find those pieces of trash.
Yeah. Or just every day, so many people are out walking right now. The weather's been beautiful, because of the pandemic. Folks have developed new exercise routines outdoors. Just bring a bag with you. Bring a bag, bring a glove to pick up some trash, and by the end of the walk, you feel good not only because you got that exercise in, but because you've collected some trash as well. And I say these cleanups can be really disheartening because you see the amount of litter everywhere, but by the same token, it can be incredibly satisfying knowing that you've taken part in cleaning it up. So
yeah, absolutely. Let me remind everybody, if you have any questions, post them at any time. If you're not watching this live, so this video will be put up on YouTube after, and then eventually get up on our website. But you can still send us messages or questions through the website, and we will try and answer them down the road. Let's see, we have a comment. Someone's church had several. The sun has just come out on me, and it's hard to see my screen now.
I wish I could help. I can't see it.
Several volunteers picking up. Looks like they did some litter cleanups with their church, so that's
good.
always great to hear.
That's exciting.
So one of the big things that's happening here at the Nature Center is environmental education, and I know that you've always been a supporter of education. I believe that you brought your kids to these programs, to some programs that I did
absolutely
a few years ago.
Yeah.
With COVID and everything suddenly changing, is there any looking forward to making online education more permanent? Because I know with so we're up over 200 of these programs so far. The estimate is 750,000 people have been reached by these programs.
That's great.
And I plan on making this a permanent part of the program here at the Nature Center. Is there, looking forward, any legislative action or anything that could go towards making more of this online education available in the future?
Yeah, it's a good question. I don't know that we need legislative action, but perhaps we do, and it's something to talk about. But I do think you have a good point. Have been really looking for ways to connect, and doing it interactively, but virtually, has been just a terrific thing in the midst of this pandemic. It's been a bright spot, I know, for so many people to be able to log on and get information from you, Ranger Russ, learn a little bit more about animals and nature and all of the things that you've had to offer, in your realm of environmental education. I just think it's been fantastic. And, I think that folks, even as we move forward and things start to reopen, I think this is always going to be a part of their lives now. They like, being able to connect very easily, not having to leave the comfort of their home, but being able to get a quick education and a quick snapshot of what's going on, maybe at the park or, a different state park, really traveling across the state and giving folks a glimpse of other areas, which is really nice when maybe they wouldn't have the opportunity to get there otherwise. So I think this is going to be it's become part of our way of life these days. And I think that's a fantastic thing. And to the extent that we can support that as a state and make sure that it moves forward, I'm behind that 100%.
Glimpse is a great word, because I feel like, I'm going out and doing these programs and people think, oh, that was the whole, I don't know, pick a subject. I did the giant puffball mushrooms, did a program on those. And you think, 20 minutes or a half hour, that's everything you need to know about a puffball. But it's like, I feel like I'm scratching the surface with every program. Right. And we're probably, as soon as we're done, going to be like, oh, we should have talked about something else.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, and I mean, I think that's the point, right? You give everybody a little taste, and then those, you're inspiring folks to learn more. Kids, adults, everybody, they want to learn a little bit more about those giant puffball mushrooms, right? Or whatever it is, or legislation, and maybe, oh, I didn't realize I could testify on that, or there was something on balloons, whatever it is. And I think that's the key, right? We are able to connect with folks and gain a little bit more understanding about everything. And if it's something that catches somebody's interest, then they can delve deeper. And that's always a good thing.
Yeah, I really hope that that's what's happening, is people are seeing and hearing this and saying, oh, I want to get involved, or I can do that. Right. It's something simple.
Yeah.
We've been getting a lot of great feedback on the programs, and something you said earlier reminded me of that. I get a lot of emails, mostly from senior citizens, but people saying that they're quarantined, they're in a high risk category, and they can't get out, and they do feel like they're out doing something with something like these programs, because they just get, again, it's just a glimpse, but they get to visit a park or see an animal or a mushroom.
Right. Yeah, no, it's just that feeling of human connection, absent human connection, right? There's something about being live and knowing, I'm looking behind you and kind of feeling a sense that I know exactly where you are, and it looks beautiful, and it's, it can kind of, it's a little bit of escapism, right? In the midst of, sort of being in the same environment for months on end, which can be really difficult for people, and especially our senior population and those who are most vulnerable. And we need to be making sure that we're making those connections however we can at this point. It's just so important for all of our social and mental well-being, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So I realize we're probably going overtime already, but I don't know how much time you have.
I'm good.
Is there anything that you would like people, anything legislative that you think people should be aware of in the future or coming up?
Yeah, well, we have a lot coming down the pike. I think, obviously there is likely to be a different legislative makeup come January. And so you watch for that, and new legislators come in and may have different priorities. But I can tell you that as a committee, our priorities have really centered around waste mitigation efforts. I think you'll see more of that, recycling efforts. We had a bottle bill that I think really badly needs updating. That all pertains to recycling, right? The redemption amount on our bottles and cans, to get some of those. I can tell you, I pulled a ton of those out of the river last week too, and the plastic bottle caps. So we need to do something about that, making sure nips, those little nips, making sure that those are not strewn everywhere. So real efforts around that, and figuring out what are the solutions to these problems that we have from an environmental standpoint. Polystyrene, I would look for that to come come back, a ban on polystyrene. We talked a lot about plastic straws and a ban on plastic straws, because we know that those litter our oceans and our land, and we really want to do everything we can to lower our single-use plastics consumption. And so, I think those will be all very important bills that you'll see coming down the pike as we move forward. We also are in the midst right now. We're looking at going in for a special session. In fact, I thought I was going to have to miss today because we thought maybe we were going to be in today. It's looking like next week now. We're talking about moving to a new release-based remediation system for the state of Connecticut for environmental spills. So any hazardous materials that are leaked into our earth or into our waterways, new ways of cleaning up those releases. And so that's an exciting thing coming up for the environment right now, as well as some environmental justice legislation, making sure that polluting facilities are not all concentrated in one area, bringing up real issues around racial justice and how we make that happen. So, these are all things that we're working on currently, and I suspect we'll see an overflow into the next session. We've got a lot going on in the Energy Committee as well, and our movement towards renewables that I mentioned. So those are really exciting efforts, in terms of wind and solar. You got that solar array. So I think these are all really great things to be on the lookout for as we move forward.
Yeah, sometimes I think I'm just too logical. Or the bottle bill that you mentioned, I never understood why a water bottle is recyclable, but a Gatorade bottle is not.
Yes. Thank you. I couldn't agree more.
A beer bottle is and a wine bottle is not. And
right. Yep. So juices, sports drinks, teas, they do not have a deposit on them, and there's really no incentive, right, to do the right thing with those bottles and cans. So we need to make sure that there's a bigger breadth of products that have that redemption. And also, we're talking about moving to a slightly higher deposit so that there is more incentive to bring back. We've seen this work in other states, and they have upwards of 90% redemption rates, which is astounding. Wow. It's really great. In Oregon, in particular, they've had a phenomenal program there. So we need to be looking at what other states are doing really well in their efforts, to mitigate the waste problem that we have worldwide, and use them as examples and try and move our own state forward.
And you reusable bottles.
Yes, whenever possible.
Yep.
Yeah.
So there's a comment about the melting glacier fields, and I think a lot of the things that you've talked about come back to climate change.
Yeah.
With increased recycling, it's going to reduce the amount of new product that's needed to be manufactured.
Right.
So, and just cleaning up everything.
Yeah. And we're making real efforts. Like I said, we talked a little bit about emissions. Vehicle emissions is huge. So we really need to make those efforts. I know Commissioner Dykes of DEEP has been working very hard to, put Connecticut in a leadership position in terms of getting those medium and heavy duty vehicles, to an electric vehicle instead of, these high emissions vehicles, making sure that our city transportation, our city buses are electric, moving in that direction doing what we can to make electric vehicles more affordable for the general public, so that we can, have initiatives like Governor Newsom in California, and set a hard date where we just are no longer selling these gas-powered vehicles, but only electric vehicles. But we have to make some, steps in the right direction in making these more affordable for the general public as well. Because the last thing we want is, an economic disparity issue, or, inequality issue. So we need to make these readily available. We have a program called Cheaper, which provides incentives and rebates for electric vehicles. But those, transportation emissions is huge in combating climate change. We have a great wind program where we've been securing more and more wind energy across the state of Connecticut, and we need to continue with those programs. I think we need to do collaborate more regionally. I had Senator Kaminsky reach out to me. He's a New York State senator, and he is in the New York State legislature. And if we can do more together in these regional efforts, where we share the same water, we share borders, we share our and so we need to be doing as much as we can, making these efforts together as a team.
Yeah, that sounds fantastic.
Yeah.
I remember years ago when all the coal power plants in the Midwest were affecting us, and we really need to work with other states to help mitigate all of these issues that we're having.
That's right.
So
that's right. Yeah.
All right. I really want to thank you for coming on today. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
I think that,
this has been great.
We will probably have lots more comments and questions, and if it's something that I can't answer, I'll send them on to you, and you can answer those.
Absolutely. I always happy to. And, they can find me online on my website, or christine.cohen@cga.ct.gov is my email address. Always happy to have a conversation via email, or reach out by phone, and we can chat. So
Absolutely.
yeah.
All right. So
All right.
I want to thank Senator Christine Cohen for coming on to the show today. If you are watching this and it's not live any longer, you can continue to comment on our website. You can see this video on the Meigs Point Nature Center YouTube channel. And please subscribe to our YouTube channel. I'm trying to get enough subscribers to do a mobile YouTube recordings. But you can find this also on our website, meigspointnaturecenter.org. Visit the Virtual Learning Center. We'll have additional information on there. So again, thank you. And until next time, this is Ranger Russ signing off from the Meigs Point Nature Center.